Michael Sullivan strode out of the hospital doors with his heart pounding in despair. The billionaire had just been told by yet another specialist that nothing more could be done for his little girl. Grace, only 9 years old, hadn't taken a single step since the accident. His vision blurred with tears as he ran a hand through his graying hair. All the money in the world, he thought bitterly. And I can't save my own daughter. "Excuse me, sir," came a small hesitant voice behind him. Michael spun around, hastily wiping his eyes. Standing by the curb was a thin 10-year-old boy in dusty clothes. The kid's dark hair was unkempt, and he clutched a threadbare backpack. Probably another beggar, Michael assumed, reaching into his wallet. But before he could hand over any cash, the boy spoke again, voice unwavering. "Sir, I can heal your daughter," the homeless boy said softly, gazing up at Michael with large, earnest eyes. For a moment, Michael was sure he misheard. He blinked, caught off guard by the child's words. Curiosity and hope sparked painfully in his chest, mixed with disbelief. "What did you say?" Michael asked, almost a whisper. The boy took a timid step forward. "I heard the doctors talking about Grace," he murmured. "I know I'm just a kid, but I can help her walk again, I promise." Michael's shock quickly flared into anger. How dare this unknown kid offer false hope in his darkest moment? His hands trembled as he struggled to find words. The boy's gaze remained steady, impossibly sincere. Michael found himself speechless, his mind racing. Could this child be serious? Desperation clashed with skepticism in Michael's heart as he stood frozen on the sidewalk, the boy's bold claim hanging in the air like a challenge or a lifeline. A cold wind whipped through the hospital courtyard as Michael regained his voice. "You can heal her?" he repeated, words laced with skepticism. Up close, the boy looked even more fragile, cheeks smudged with dirt, sneakers held together by fraying laces. Michael's protective instincts kicked in. Was this some cruel joke or a scam? This child has no medical training, he thought. How could he possibly help Grace? Michael towered over the boy, his jaw tight. "Do you have any idea who I am?" he demanded, his tone harsher than intended. The boy flinched but didn't back away. "Yes, sir," he said quietly. "You're Mr. Sullivan. Everyone in the city knows you." Michael almost scoffed. It figured his name was known even on the streets. "Then you know my daughter has seen the best doctors money can buy. They all failed," he emphasized, bitterness creeping into his voice. "What makes you think you can succeed where they couldn't?" For a heartbeat, the boy was silent. He bit his lip, glancing at the ground. I just know I can," he insisted softly. "Please, I want to help." There was a pleading in his voice that gave Michael pause. In the distance, car horns blared and people rushed by, but an odd hush seemed to cocoon them in that moment. Michael studied the child's face, the earnest eyes, the way he stood resolute despite shivering in the thin hoodie he wore. The boy couldn't be more than 10, the same age Grace was when she had her last birthday, before the accident. Michael's chest tightened. Hope was a dangerous thing. He tried to bury it after so many disappointments. He opened his mouth to dismiss the kid, to tell him to run along, but the words caught. Instead, he found himself asking, more gently, "What's your name, son?" The boy's eyes widened slightly in surprise at being asked. "Noah," he said. "My name is Noah." Michael nodded faintly. "What am I doing?" He questioned himself even as he continued speaking. "Noah, you should be careful making promises. If I let you near my daughter and you upset her." He trailed off, shaking his head. It was absurd, the mere thought of trusting his precious child's hopes with a stranger. A homeless boy, no less. A hospital security guard cast a suspicious glance their way. Feeling the weight of the absurd situation, Michael exhaled sharply. "Go home, kid," he muttered, turning away. "This isn't a game." He strode toward his waiting limousine, expecting that to be the end of it. But as he walked away, Noah's small voice followed, cracking with emotion. "Sir, I don't have a home, but I won't give up. I will help her somehow." Michael paused mid-step. He did not turn around, but those words lingered in the air as he slid into the car. As the door closed, Michael's heart pounded with conflict. Against all logic, a seed of intrigue, or was it hope, had taken root inside him. That night, Michael sat alone in Grace's dimly lit hospital room, the steady beep of monitors the only sound. Grace slept peacefully for now, her tiny form dwarfed by the bed and medical equipment. In the pale glow of the bedside lamp, Michael gently brushed a strand of hair from her face. She looked so much like her mother when she slept that it hurt. He closed his eyes, fighting back tears. "I'm sorry, sweetheart," he whispered. "Daddy's trying everything." His thoughts wandered to the encounter outside. In his mind, Michael kept seeing Noah's determined eyes and hearing his voice. "I won't give up. I will help her." The audacity and sincerity in those words gnawed at him. Where does a child find such conviction? He wondered. He remembered how Noah had shivered in the cold, clad in only that thin hoodie. Michael cursed under his breath, feeling a twinge of guilt. The boy was probably sleeping on some bench tonight. And yet, Noah had offered to help a stranger's daughter with such passion. Michael sank into the chair by Grace's bed. On the side table lay a stack of medical reports, each a testament to failed treatments. With a weary sigh, he picked up the top file. The bold letters read, "No improvement." A familiar hopelessness pressed down on him. He had spent a fortune on experimental therapies abroad, consulted world-renowned surgeons, all with zero progress. The doctor's words from earlier echoed, "Prepare for the possibility that Grace may never walk again." His gaze fell on Grace's legs under the blanket, still and thin. "I refuse to prepare for that," he thought fiercely. In the silence, Noah's words returned yet again, unbidden. "I can heal your daughter." Michael ran a hand over his face. It sounded crazy. But what if there was even a chance? He was a man used to taking risks in business. He'd gambled billions on ventures with far less certainty than this. And here a boy with nothing offered the one thing he lacked. Hope. Just then Grace stirred, eyes fluttering open. "Daddy?" she murmured drowsily. Michael leaned forward, forcing a gentle smile. "I'm here, my angel." "Daddy's here." She managed a weak grin before noticing the troubled crease on her father's brow. "Is something wrong?" she asked softly. Michael hesitated. He hadn't told her about the latest prognosis. "No, honey, I was just thinking." He swallowed. "I met someone today, a young boy. He said he wants to help you get better." Grace's eyes widened slightly in curiosity. A spark of interest, something he hadn't seen in a long time, flickered on her face. "A boy? Who?" she asked. Michael realized he didn't know how to explain. "Just a kid about your age. I'm not sure how he thinks he can help, but..." He smoothed her blanket, avoiding her gaze. He seemed very certain. Grace was quiet for a moment. Then, in a timid voice, maybe I could meet him?" Her innocence cut through Michael. He had been shielding her from false hope, but here she was, grasping at even the idea of help. He looked into his daughter's hopeful eyes and felt something shift inside him. Michael gently took her hand. "All right," he nodded slowly, making a decision in that instant. "I'll find him. We'll see what this is about together." As Grace closed her eyes again, Michael steeled himself. He didn't know if Noah could truly do anything, but for Grace's sake, he would swallow his pride and find the boy who dared to promise a miracle. Early the next morning, Michael's black sedan crawled along the streets near the hospital. The city was just waking up. Shop owners raising shutters, commuters hurrying by with coffee, a few homeless souls stirring under blankets of newspaper. Michael's driver glanced at him in the rearview mirror. "Sir, we've done 3 loops. Perhaps he's moved on." Michael's frustration mounted as they passed the alley by the hospital for the 4th time. Where was that boy? He had even sent 2 of his security staff to scout the nearby blocks. Just as he was about to concede defeat, he spotted a small figure near the hospital's side entrance. Noah was there, standing on tiptoe by a vending machine, trying to fish out a stuck snack. He looked exhausted, rubbing his arms against the morning chill. Michael stepped out of the car and approached slowly. He cleared his throat. "Noah." The boy startled, dropping the bag of chips he'd just freed. When he saw Michael, his eyes widened in cautious surprise. "Mr. Sullivan," Noah stammered. He seemed unsure whether to run or smile. Michael managed a gentle nod. "You're up early." Noah ducked his head. "The nurses sometimes give me leftovers from breakfast if I help clean up," he admitted, blushing. Michael felt a pang of pity imagining the boy's routine. He took a step closer. "Listen, about yesterday." He struggled with the words. He wasn't used to asking others for help, let alone a child. "My daughter, Grace, she wants to meet you." The boy's face lit up with a mix of relief and excitement. "Really? You'll let me try to help her?" he asked eagerly. Michael raised a hand in warning. We will see what you can do. I'm not promising anything, understood? His tone was firm, but not unkind. Noah nodded quickly. Understood, sir. A short while later, Noah found himself standing inside Grace's private hospital room, clutching his beat-up backpack nervously. The room was bright and spacious, filled with flowers and get-well cards. By the window sat Grace in her wheelchair, sunlight catching the golden strands of her hair. She looked up at Noah with wide, curious eyes. For a moment, an awkward silence fell. Grace was the first to break it with a shy smile. "Hi, you're Noah?" she asked. Her voice was soft, but there was a glimmer of eagerness. Noah stepped forward, his sneakers squeaking on the polished floor. "Yeah, hi Grace." He gave a small wave, then remembering something, he quickly unzipped his backpack. I brought you something." From the bag, Noah carefully pulled out a little handmade windmill fashioned from folded newspaper and a stick. He must have picked it up or made it himself. Grace's eyes lit up at the simple toy. "It's not much," Noah said apologetically, "but it spins really fast if you blow on it." He moved closer and held it out to her. Grace took the paper windmill, a tentative laugh escaping as she gave it a gentle puff. The vanes twirled and she grinned, delighted. Michael watched this exchange from a few steps away, his arms crossed. He felt his chest tighten at the sight of Grace's genuine smile. It had been months since he'd seen that. Grace looked up at Noah. "It's beautiful, thank you," she said sincerely. Noah's face broke into a proud smile, showing a missing tooth that reminded Michael just how young he truly was. As Noah knelt beside the wheelchair, he met Grace's gaze. "I'm really happy to meet you," he said. I think we can get you walking again, Grace." Grace nodded, as if she already believed him. Michael found himself caught off guard by how comfortable his daughter seemed with this boy from the streets. Clearing his throat, he interjected, "Noah, you said you know how to help her. Please explain. What exactly is it you plan to do?" Noah looked up at Michael earnestly. "Just let me spend some time with her, sir. I have a few ideas, some exercises, and, well, my mom taught me some things that might help. But mostly..." He turned back to Grace. "I think she needs a friend." Grace's eyes moistened at that, and Michael felt his own throat tighten. He realized Grace had grown painfully lonely despite his constant presence. She had no playmates in the hospital and rarely saw children her age. Michael gave a curt nod, trying to mask the emotion in his voice. "All right, Noah. I'll give you a chance, but I'll be right here. If anything upsets her, this ends immediately. Understood?" Noah met his gaze squarely. "Yes, sir. I just want to help." With that, Michael stepped back, watching as Noah began to talk to Grace in a gentle, animated way about the little windmill and the sunny day outside. For the first time in a long while, hope crept into Michael's heart. Fragile and cautious, but present, as he observed the unlikely pair by the window. Over the next several days, Noah returned to Grace's room every morning like clockwork. With Michael's cautious approval, the boy became a fixture at Grace's side, chatting with her, reading stories in a cheerful voice, and encouraging her with small exercises. Michael often lingered by the door or sat in the corner, quietly taking in each session. To his amazement, Grace's demeanor was transforming. The once withdrawn little girl now greeted Noah with bright eyes and laughter that tinkled through the sterile hospital air like music. One afternoon, Michael stepped into the room to find an extraordinary sight. Grace was giggling. Noah sat on the floor beside her wheelchair, enthusiastically drawing a hopscotch pattern on a big sheet of paper. "We'll start small," he was telling Grace, his tone playful yet determined. "Today, we're just going to practice moving your feet forward, one at a time, along these squares I drew. Like a game, okay?" Grace bit her lip, uncertainty flickering across her face. "Noah, I haven't moved them in so long. What if I can't?" Her voice quivered. Noah offered her an encouraging smile. "It's okay. Even if it's just a tiny movement, that's a win. My mom used to say, little steps lead to big journeys. We'll try together." Grace glanced over at her father, who gave her a reassuring nod. Michael's heart pounded. He found himself silently praying, "Please, let this work." Noah gently placed a hand on Grace's right leg over the soft blanket that covered her useless limbs. "Do you trust me, Grace?" he asked. Grace nodded, tears of apprehension in her eyes. "I do." Noah took a deep breath. "On 3, try to slide your foot forward into the next square I drew. Even a tiny bit." Grace inhaled and nodded again. 1, 2, 3. A tense hush fell. For a moment nothing happened. Michael clenched his fists. But then Grace let out a small whimper and willed her foot forward. To the naked eye it was almost imperceptible, a faint twitch beneath the blanket. But Noah's face lit up like sunshine. "You did it," he exclaimed. Grace's eyes widened. "Did I?" Michael stepped closer, hardly daring to breathe. He had seen it. It was just a couple of centimeters, but he had seen his daughter's foot move for the first time in a year. Grace burst into tears, of joy and disbelief. Noah laughed happily, brushing his own misty eyes. "I told you, even a tiny movement counts. I'm so proud of you, Grace." Unable to contain herself, Grace flung her arms around Noah's neck in an impulsive hug. The boy blushed, but hugged her back gently. Michael felt a tear slip down his cheek. He quickly wiped it away, overcome with a mixture of elation and shock. He cleared his throat to announce his presence. Grace looked up, smiling wider than he'd seen in ages. "Daddy, did you see? I moved my foot," she cried. Michael approached, kneeling beside her. "I saw, honey." "I definitely saw," he said, voice thick with emotion. He placed a hand on Noah's shoulder, the first time he'd touched the boy in a gesture of warmth. "Thank you," he whispered, his eyes meeting Noah's. The boy beamed, an innocent happiness radiating from him. That evening, after Noah had left for the night, Michael lingered by Grace's bedside during dinner. She could hardly stop talking about Noah, how funny he was, how he taught her to make an origami bird, how he believed in her. Michael listened, humbled and amazed. A 10-year-old homeless boy had accomplished in a few days what specialists could not in months. He had given Grace hope again. In a corner of the room sat the little paper windmill, its vain still now, but symbolic of the new wind in their lives. Michael realized with a swelling heart that the impossible suddenly felt possible. The next week brought more progress and new challenges. Bolstered by the small victory, Noah introduced gentle exercises daily. Using the paper hopscotch as a guide, he encouraged Grace to slide each foot forward and back. She managed to do it a bit more each day, regaining faint control. Michael watched in wonder as Grace's confidence grew alongside her strength. Whispers of a miracle spread among the hospital staff. Nurses would peek in, smiling at the sight of Grace working so hard under Noah's enthusiastic coaching. But not everyone was convinced. One morning, as Noah was helping Grace practice lifting her left leg an inch off the wheelchair footrest, Dr. Whitaker, Grace's neurologist, walked in for a scheduled checkup. He paused, eyebrows raised at the scene. A ragged boy gently holding Grace's ankle, counting 3, 4, 5 and rest. Grace giggled, sweaty but excited from the effort. Dr. Whitaker cleared his throat. "Mr. Sullivan, a word please?" he said, gesturing Michael out into the hallway. Michael squeezed Grace's shoulder and stepped outside, closing the door behind him. The doctor's expression was disapproving. "Sir, I realize you want to keep Grace's spirits up, but allowing an untrained child to play physical therapist is highly unorthodox." Michael bristled. "With all due respect, doctor, in just days my daughter has shown movement, something you said might never happen." Dr. Whitaker frowned. "I reviewed the nurse's notes. Minor toe movement can be involuntary or reflexive. Don't be too quick to attribute it to this boy's interventions. I'm concerned about false hope or even potential injury. What if he moves her improperly and worsens her condition?" His tone was grave. Inside the room, through the window, Michael saw Noah and Grace laughing as they attempted another exercise. Grace's face was flushed with exertion, but she looked happier than he'd seen in a long time. Michael felt a surge of protectiveness, not just for Grace now, but surprisingly for Noah too. "He's careful with her," Michael replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "He truly cares." The doctor sighed. "Caring isn't a substitute for expertise. I strongly advise limiting his involvement to supervised visits. Purely for companionship, leave the rehab to professionals." With that, Dr. Whitaker gave a polite nod and moved down the hall. Michael stood there, conflicted. The doctor's concerns weren't unfounded. The last thing he wanted was to see Grace hurt. That afternoon, Michael decided to keep a more watchful eye. He sat closer as Noah began a new exercise, helping Grace try to stand. They moved near the parallel bars used by therapists. Grace's legs trembled as Noah braced her with surprising strength for his small size. "You're doing great, Grace," he encouraged. She managed to pull herself up from the wheelchair, using her arms on the bars, Noah supporting her waist. Michael's heart pounded at the sight of his daughter attempting to stand on her own feet. Suddenly, Grace gasped in pain. Her knees buckled, and she slipped from the bars. Noah tried to catch her, but her weight, though slight, was too much for him. Grace collapsed to the floor, a sob of agony escaping her lips. In an instant, Michael was at her side. "Grace!" he exclaimed, fear spiking through him. He scooped his daughter into his arms. She was crying, clutching her leg. Noah looked stricken, hovering anxiously. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry," he pleaded, tears in his eyes. "She said she wanted to try standing today. I thought she was ready." Michael's relief that Grace wasn't seriously hurt quickly morphed into fury and panic. "This is exactly what I feared," he snapped. Grace's sobs continued softly against his chest. Michael glared at Noah, his voice cold and trembling. "You promised to help her, not hurt her." Noah's face crumpled. "It was an accident." But Michael was beyond reason. The doctor's warning rang in his ears. He lifted Grace back into her chair, checking her leg. "It's okay, sweetheart," he soothed her gently, then his tone hardened as he addressed Noah. "I think you should leave, now." Noah's eyes brimmed with tears. He stepped forward. "Mr. Sullivan, please, I can." "Enough!" Michael roared, startling both children. Grace reached for his arm. "Daddy, it's not his fault." But Michael shook his head firmly. "No, this has gone too far." He pointed to the door, his voice like ice. "Get out, Noah. I won't watch my daughter get hurt again." For a long second, Noah stood rooted, tears streaming down his dirty cheeks. He looked to Grace, who was weeping not from pain but from heartbreak. "I'm sorry, Grace," he whispered. "I never wanted to hurt you." Then, with shoulders hunched in defeat, Noah grabbed his backpack from the corner. He paused, pulling something from it. The little paper windmill. He set it gently on Grace's lap with trembling hands. "Don't give up," he choked out. "Please." Before Michael could say another word, Noah dashed from the room, wiping his face with his sleeve. The door swung shut behind him, and he was gone. Inside the quiet room, Grace clutched the windmill and sobbed quietly, each cry stabbing at Michael's conscience. He had wanted to protect her, but as he held his daughter tight, Michael couldn't shake the image of Noah's devastated face, the face of a child who only wanted to help. That night, rain pelted against the hospital windows. Grace had cried herself to an exhausted sleep, the paper windmill still in her hands. Michael sat in the darkened room, guilt racking him. He gently slipped the windmill from Grace's loosened grasp and noticed something new on it. Along one of the paper veins, Noah had written in careful pencil strokes, "Never give up." Michael's throat tightened as he traced the words. Despite how things ended, the boy's final message to Grace was hope. A heavy sigh escaped Michael. He thought back over the past weeks. Grace's laughter, her incredible progress, however slight, those were real. And they were thanks to Noah. Yes, today had been a setback, but was banishing the boy the right choice? Michael buried his face in his hands. In his fear, he'd possibly crushed the very hope that had rekindled in his daughter. His mind drifted to Noah. Where had he run off to in the storm? The boy had nowhere to go, no family to run to. Michael recalled Noah's timid admission, "I don't have a home." Shame burned in Michael's chest. Hours ago, Noah had been at their side, practically a part of their little team. Now he was out in the cold, likely thinking he'd failed completely. Michael stood and quietly stepped out of Grace's room, leaving her in the care of the night nurse. He needed air to think. In the hallway, he nearly bumped into Nurse Jenkins, who had often watched Noah and Grace's sessions with a fond smile. She looked at Michael with a mix of empathy and disappointment. "That boy meant well, you know," she said softly. "He's been through a lot himself." Michael paused, surprised. "You know Noah?" The nurse nodded. "He's been around the hospital for months, helps out where he can. We've tried to get him to go to a shelter, but he always slips away. He used to come in with his mother last year. She was very sick. Cancer. After she passed, he just didn't leave." Michael felt a jolt. Noah had lost his mother here in this very hospital. The nurse continued, voice heavy with sadness. "That child has a heart of gold. When he saw other patients struggling, he'd bring them water, tell them jokes. Little things. Some of us started calling him Dr. Noah as a joke, but honestly, the way he could lift spirits was remarkable." She patted Michael's arm. Whatever happened today, I know he was only trying to help Grace. He looks at her and sees someone like him, lonely and hurting. As the nurse walked away, Michael's eyes burned with unshed tears. The puzzle pieces of Noah's life fell into place. He was alone, just like Grace. He had needed to help her, perhaps as much as she needed hope, and Michael had sent him away in anger. Filled with resolve, Michael grabbed his coat. He informed his driver and security that he was going out and might need help searching. The storm outside was raging, wind laced with autumn chill. Michael's Mercedes navigated through downtown, headlights cutting through the downpour as they retraced the path toward the alleys near the hospital. Michael's mind raced. Where would a grieving, homeless child go in the middle of the night? After a fruitless half-hour of searching alleys and parks, Michael was about to expand the radius when his driver pointed toward a small church at the corner of 8th Street. Its doors were slightly ajar, warm light spilling out. Michael dashed from the car, not even bothering with an umbrella as rain soaked through his shirt. He pushed open the heavy oak door and stepped into the humble chapel. Inside, candles flickered along the pews. At the front, before the altar, a lone small figure knelt, drenched and trembling. Noah. The boy was hugging his backpack tightly, and his shoulders shook with quiet sobs. Michael's heart clenched. He approached softly, the old floorboards creaking under his footsteps. Noah heard and turned, alarmed. Seeing Michael, he scrambled up, wiping his red-rimmed eyes. "I am sorry, sir," Noah stammered, voice hoarse from crying. "I know I shouldn't be here. I didn't know where else to go." He stepped back, as if expecting Michael to scold him or strike him. Instead, Michael slowly sank to one knee, so he was at eye level with the boy. Rainwater dripped from Michael's hair onto the stone floor. "Noah," he said gently, and placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. Noah flinched, surprised by the kind touch. Michael's eyes were filled with regret. "No, I am the one who's sorry." His voice shook with sincerity. "I lashed out at you because I was afraid. Not of you, but of losing Grace, of seeing her hurt. I know you only wanted to help." Tears mingled with raindrops on Michael's face. "You've done so much for my daughter, more than anyone else. I was wrong to send you away." Noah stared, speechless. In the candlelight, he looked small and vulnerable, water puddling at his feet. Michael swallowed hard. "Grace is asking for you," he lied softly. In truth, Grace hadn't spoken since the crying, but he knew she would. "She needs you, Noah. I think you're the only one who can help her now. Will you come back?" Noah's lower lip quivered. She isn't mad at me," he whispered. Michael shook his head. "She misses you terribly. She held your windmill all night." At that, Noah gave a shaky smile. Michael extended his hand. "Come, I'll make sure you have dry clothes and a warm meal, and then, if you're up for it, maybe one more try?" For the first time since the accident, Michael saw it, a faint spark of hope rekindling in Noah's eyes. The boy hesitated only a second before he flung himself forward, wrapping his arms around Michael's neck in a tight hug. Startled, Michael froze, then slowly embraced the boy who had been a stranger just weeks before. In that quiet church, billionaire and homeless child clung to each other, bound by their shared devotion to a little girl's future. "Thank you for giving me another chance," Noah mumbled into Michael's shoulder. Michael held him a moment longer, emotion swelling in his chest. "No, son, thank you," he replied softly. Outside, the storm began to ease, the drumming rain calming to a gentle patter as Michael led Noah out of the chapel. A renewed determination guided them through the night. Together, they were going to save Grace, no matter what. By dawn, the storm had passed. A pale gold sun peeked over the city skyline as Michael's car sped back toward the hospital. In the back seat, Noah sat wrapped in Michael's dry suit jacket, far too large for his small frame. He sipped gratefully from a steaming cup of hot chocolate Michael's driver had procured, color returning to his cheeks. Michael glanced over at the boy. Despite the long night, Noah's eyes shone with a resolute light. At the hospital, they were met with surprise. Nurse Jenkins raised her eyebrows in approval upon seeing Michael gently guiding Noah through the corridor. Grace's room was quiet. She was awake, propped against her pillows, staring listlessly at the window. She hadn't touched her breakfast tray. The events of the previous day had left her defeated and despondent. Michael gave a soft knock on the door. "Grace?" he said gently. She turned her head slowly. At the sight of Noah peeking from behind Michael, Grace's eyes widened in disbelief. "Noah," she cried, voice cracking. Tears instantly sprang to her eyes. Noah rushed to her side, kneeling by the bed. "I'm here," he said, smiling through his own tears. Grace clutched his hand. I thought I'd never see you again," she whimpered. Michael stepped closer, heart aching as he watched his daughter cling to Noah as if he were a lifeline. "I'm sorry, sweetheart," Michael said softly. "I was wrong. Noah is here to help if you still want him." Grace nodded vigorously, wiping her tears. "Yes, please." She looked at Noah, eyes shining with hope reborn. "I'm so glad you came back." Noah gently brushed a strand of hair from Grace's face, an echo of a gesture Michael often did. "I'm not giving up on you, Grace, I promised." He squeezed her hand, then glanced at Michael. "Mr. Sullivan, may I try something today? Something different?" Michael crouched down, level with the two children. "What do you need?" he asked, determination in his voice. Noah took a breath. "My mom used to make this herbal oil for muscle pain and to help with circulation. I think it could help Grace's legs. I wrote down the ingredients. Maybe your driver can find them? They're common in Chinatown." He rummaged in his backpack and produced a crumpled piece of paper filled with a child's scrawl of notes. Michael took it without hesitation and handed it off to his security chief with orders to get everything on it immediately. If Noah had said he needed stardust, Michael would have tried to find it, anything to help Grace. As they waited, Noah spoke softly to Grace. "We're going to try again today, but a little differently. I'll help with the oil massage first, like my mom used to do, okay?" Grace looked nervous but nodded, trust in her eyes. Michael remembered Nurse Jenkins' words that Noah's mother died of cancer. Clearly, she had taught Noah well in their time together. Half an hour later, a small bag of herbs and oils arrived. Noah mixed them as instructed by memory. A few drops of eucalyptus and clove in a base of warm coconut oil. The room filled with a soothing, spicy aroma. Gently, with Michael's help, they eased Grace onto the therapy mat. Noah's slender hands, now warm with oil, began to massage Grace's legs with surprising firmness. Grace winced at first, unused to the pressure, but Noah spoke to her in a calm, encouraging tone. "This might tingle or even sting a bit, but that means it's working. Think of it like waking your legs up from a long sleep." Michael observed in amazement. Noah's demeanor was focused and confident, as if he truly were a little doctor. This was a different approach, and Michael prayed it would succeed. After 15 minutes of massage, Noah wiped his brow. "All right, Grace, let's try to stand, but not by the bars this time. Let's do it here, with your dad and me helping." Grace's eyes went wide with fear. The memory of yesterday's fall loomed. She began trembling. "I'm scared," she admitted in a small voice. Noah took her hand in both of his. "I know," he said softly, "but you won't fall this time, I promise. Your dad and I, we've got you." Michael moved behind Grace, kneeling and placing his strong hands under her arms for support. Grace nodded, tears of anxiety gathering. Noah moved to her legs. "On three, try to push up with your good leg," he instructed. Grace had one leg that retained slightly more strength. "Dad and I will lift a bit too. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Grace gritted her teeth and pushed against the floor with her right foot. Michael lifted under her arms, taking some weight, and Noah steadied her knees. In fits and starts, Grace rose upright. She gave a cry of pain, effort, and astonished joy all at once. She was standing, wobbly, half supported by Michael and Noah, but standing on her own 2 feet for the first time since the accident. Tears streamed down Grace's face. Noah let out an excited laugh. "You're doing it, Grace, you're doing it," he exclaimed. Michael was too choked up to speak. He pressed his cheek against Grace's head, holding her from behind as she stood. He could feel her little body trembling like a newborn fawn. Grace sucked in gulps of air, overcome by emotion. "I can stand," she sobbed, a smile breaking through. "Oh my gosh, Daddy, I'm standing." Michael nodded, unable to form words, his own tears falling freely onto her hospital gown. After a few seconds, Grace's knees began to buckle. Carefully, Michael and Noah eased her back down to sit on the edge of the bed. Grace was panting, face wet with tears, but she was glowing with triumph. Noah knelt in front of her and quickly checked her legs. "Any pain? Are you okay?" Grace threw her arms around Noah, crying into his shoulder. Thank you, she kept repeating. Noah's eyes welled up as he hugged her back, murmuring, You did this, Grace. You're so strong. I knew you could do it. Michael had to step away, covering his face with one hand as he tried to compose himself. His whole body trembled with gratitude and disbelief. In that golden morning light, he had just witnessed what he hardly dared dream, his daughter standing. It wasn't a cure, not yet, but it was a miracle in the making. Outside the door, a gasp sounded. Nurse Jenkins had been watching through the glass and clapped a hand over her mouth in joy. Michael caught her eye and she gave him an ecstatic thumbs up before dashing off, likely to spread the news. Michael let out a shaky laugh, then returned to the children. Grace was still holding Noah's hand tightly as if afraid he might disappear again. Michael went to them and, in a spontaneous gesture, wrapped his arms around both kids. He hugged them fiercely, his daughter and the brave boy who refused to give up on her. With a thick voice, he whispered, "I'm so proud of you, Grace. And Noah. I can never thank you enough." Noah looked up at Michael and for the first time saw not just Grace's father, but an ally, perhaps even a friend. He simply smiled and said, "We're not done yet, sir. Walking is next." Michael let out a breathless chuckle. The road ahead was still long, but for the first time in a long time, he truly believed that Grace would walk again, and that Noah would be right there with them until she did. 2 weeks later, a hush fell over a small section of the hospital's rehabilitation gym. Grace, sweat beading on her forehead, gripped the parallel bars. Her wheelchair stood empty behind her. On one side, Noah stood bouncing on his toes, ready to catch her. On the other, a physical therapist watched in astonishment as an unofficial assistant. Michael was nearby, hands clasped under his chin, like a man witnessing a marvel. Which he was. "Okay, Grace," Noah said, voice calm but excited. "Just like we practiced, left foot forward." Grace's face was scrunched in concentration. Slowly, deliberately, she slid her left foot a few inches. The therapist let out an audible gasp. "Good, so good." Noah cheered. "Now the right foot." A small step with the right followed, shaky but clear. Grace whimpered slightly at the effort, and Michael instinctively stepped forward, but Noah gently shook his head, signaling to give her space. Step by painstaking step, Grace inched her way from one end of the bars toward the other. Each movement was a struggle, her legs weak and unsteady, but she kept going, fueled by determination and the steady encouragement from Noah. Halfway across, Grace's arms began to tremble from supporting her weight. I can't," she panted, starting to slump. Immediately, Noah moved in front of her, his back to the bars, face inches from hers. "Hey, look at me," he said firmly. Grace lifted her teary eyes to his. "You can do this. Remember when I couldn't hit that hopscotch square and you told me not to quit?" She nodded, sniffing. Noah grinned. "Well, now I'm telling you, don't quit, Grace. You have come so far. Just a few more steps and your dad is right there at the finish line." Grace glanced past Noah to see Michael standing at the end of the bars, arms open, eyes shining with pride and tears held at bay. He nodded vigorously. "Come on, sweetheart. You've got this," Michael encouraged, voice gentle but strong. Taking a deep breath, Grace steeled herself and moved again. Left foot, then right foot, inch by inch, wobbling but moving. Noah walked backwards ahead of her, matching her pace, his hands hovering near her waist, ready to catch if needed. The therapist quietly wiped tears from her eyes, whispering, "Incredible." At last, Grace neared the end of the bars. Only one small gap remained between her and her father. Her strength was almost gone, but the look on her face was one of pure resolve. With a final burst of will, Grace released the bar with one hand, reaching out toward Michael. He stepped in, closing the remaining distance, and scooped her into his arms as her legs finally gave out. "You did it! Oh my God, you did it!" Michael exclaimed, lifting Grace into a tight embrace. He spun in a small circle, laughter and sobs mingling as he held his little girl, who had just walked more than a dozen steps on her own. Grace clung to her father, exhausted tears streaming down her cheeks. "Daddy, I walked. I really walked," she cried, disbelief and joy flooding her voice. Michael pulled back to kiss her forehead, his own tears falling freely now. "Yes, you did, Grace. I am so proud of you. You're the bravest person I know," he said, voice trembling with joy. He glanced over to Noah, who stood a few feet away, hands clasped together as if in prayer, eyes glistening with happy tears as well. Gently, Michael lowered Grace into a nearby chair. To the therapist, he murmured, "Could you please give us a moment?" Understanding, the kind woman nodded and stepped aside, though not without giving Noah an amazed smile and pat on the shoulder. Michael turned to Noah. For a moment, the billionaire and the homeless boy simply looked at each other across the small space. Michael's lips parted, but no words came. What could he possibly say to the child who had just given his daughter her future back? Every attempt at speaking caught in his throat. Overwhelmed, the father was truly speechless. Noah shifted shyly, unsure, until Grace reached out and tugged him closer. With a grateful smile, Michael suddenly pulled Noah into a tight hug. He had no words, only the fervent emotion behind them. Noah sank into the embrace, and Michael could feel the boy's racing heartbeat against his own. Finally, Michael managed to whisper, raw and sincere, "Thank you, Noah. You saved her." Pulling back, Michael saw Noah's face flush in embarrassment or pride, perhaps both. "I just kept my promise," Noah mumbled, kicking at an imaginary speck on the floor. Grace took Noah's hand and squeezed it, beaming. "You kept your promise, and I kept mine," she said. "I didn't give up." The three of them shared a smile through their tears. Just then, a burst of applause erupted. Unbeknownst to them, a handful of nurses and patients in the gym had been watching the triumphant moment. They clapped and cheered, some wiping their eyes. Grace blushed and buried her face in Michael's sleeve, while Noah looked around in surprise. Michael proudly wrapped an arm around each of the children. In that radiant moment, Michael Sullivan, a man who once believed only in money and hard science, witnessed a different kind of miracle, one born of perseverance, friendship, and love. And it rendered him utterly speechless. Grace's recovery became the talk of not only the hospital, but the entire city. Doctors labeled it a remarkable rehabilitation, but the staff who had seen the boy in action knew the truth. It was nothing short of a miracle brought about by Noah's unwavering dedication. As the days passed, Grace grew steadier on her feet. First a few shaky steps, then walking with support, and soon short stretches on her own. Every simple stride was celebrated like a victory parade in the Sullivan household. A month later, on a crisp afternoon, Michael stood in his sprawling backyard garden, watching Grace and Noah play. Grace's blonde hair streamed behind her as she ran, truly ran, across the grass, laughing. Noah chased after her, both of them hollering in delight as they kicked a bright red soccer ball between them. The sight was so ordinary and yet so extraordinary that Michael felt tears prick his eyes for the 1,000th time. He never got tired of seeing Grace healthy and carefree, nor of seeing Noah by her side, finally acting like the carefree kid he had every right to be. Life had changed dramatically in those weeks. True to his word, Michael ensured Noah would never be homeless again. Noah had moved into the Sullivan home, at first into a guest room, though Michael noticed the boy was shy about the luxury. But Grace had quickly dubbed that room Noah's room and filled it with drawings she and Noah made together. Michael even found a faded photo of Noah's late mother, tucked on the nightstand. He bought a frame for it, placing it next to a photo of Grace's mother. Two guardian angels watching over their children, he mused. Inside the house, the once quiet halls rang with laughter and lively chatter. Grace eagerly showed Noah her toys and books, and in turn learned about the constellations from him. He loved stargazing, it turned out, and the best way to make peanut butter sandwiches on a budget. They were inseparable, like siblings who had found each other at last. Michael embraced Noah as family, and the paperwork was already in motion to make it official. He'd sat Noah down for a heartfelt conversation, expressing his wish to become the boy's legal guardian. Noah had been stunned. He confessed he thought living there was only temporary, like a dream that might end. When Michael assured him he was truly part of their family now, Noah broke down crying in his arms, nodding a fervent yes. It was a day Michael would cherish forever. In one fell swoop, he felt as if he'd gained a son, even as he'd regained his daughter. As Michael continued watching the children play, he heard the crunch of footsteps on the gravel path. It was Dr. Whitaker, arriving for a follow-up house visit, at Michael's insistence, to see Grace's progress. The doctor stopped, jaw slack, as he witnessed Grace deftly maneuver the soccer ball and kick it toward Noah. "Is that Grace?" he asked in amazement. Michael chuckled, clapping the doctor on the back. "The one and only. Hard to recognize her without the wheelchair, isn't it?" Dr. Whitaker shook his head in disbelief. I am man enough to admit when I'm wrong. This outcome, it's beyond what I imagined possible." He turned to Michael, sincerity in his eyes. "That boy Noah, I owe him an apology and my respect. His methods worked in ways my treatments didn't." Michael smiled warmly. "Join the club. He taught me a lot too, about hope, persistence, and miracles." Michael's gaze drifted back to the children. Grace had just scored a goal past Noah and was doing a goofy victory dance. Noah was laughing, pretending to be a sportscaster hyping up her win. The sight made Michael's heart swell. Later that evening, the family gathered around a cozy fire pit in the backyard. Grace and Noah roasted marshmallows as the sun set in a blaze of orange and pink. In the gentle twilight, Grace snuggled under one of Michael's arms while Noah leaned against his other side. Michael cleared his throat. "I have something I want to say to both of you." Two young faces turned toward him, illuminated by firelight. Michael took a moment, choosing his words carefully. "Grace, my brave girl, you have shown me what true courage looks like. You never gave up, even when things were hardest. I am so incredibly proud to be your dad." Grace beamed and hugged him tighter. He looked to Noah, his voice growing thick. "Noah, you came into our lives when we had lost all hope. You gave us back something priceless. You not only healed Grace's legs, but you healed our hearts." Michael's voice faltered as emotion overwhelmed him. "Your kindness, your faith, it reminded me of all the good in this world. You are family to us now, son. I promise I will care for you and love you as my own for the rest of my days." Noah's eyes welled up. In the flickering glow, tears streaked down his cheeks, but his smile shone bright. He didn't trust his voice to speak, so he simply leaned in and hugged Michael with all the gratitude and love a 10-year-old's heart could hold. Grace joined in, wrapping her small arms around both her dad and her best friend. They stayed like that, a huddle of warmth and love under the emerging stars. In the months that followed, Michael established the Grace and Noah Foundation, dedicating resources to help children with disabilities and those without homes. It was launched quietly, with little fanfare, just the way Noah wanted it. "It's about helping people, not about praise," he said wisely, a statement that made Michael smile at the boy's humble heart. News of Grace's recovery and Noah's role eventually spread, and though offers for interviews and talk shows poured in, Michael shielded the children from the media frenzy. This was their miracle, a deeply personal story of hope, and he let them decide how to share it. They chose to visit hospitals and shelters to inspire others, often bringing paper windmills that Noah taught Grace to make, handing them out as symbols of hope. One breezy spring morning, Michael found Noah and Grace on the front porch, assembling windmills and giggling. He quietly listened as Grace told Noah, "You know, when you first came up to Dad, I bet he didn't expect you would be the answer to his prayers." Noah laughed. "I didn't expect he'd actually listen to me. I was so scared, but something in me just knew I had to try." Michael stepped outside and joined them, ruffling Noah's hair and kissing Grace's forehead. "Thank you for trying, Noah," he said softly. "Thank you for not giving up on us." Noah looked up at Michael with a grin. "Thank you for believing in me eventually." They shared a warm smile. As the windmills in their hands caught a gentle breeze and began to spin, Michael reflected on how fate had intervened in his darkest hour. A child with nothing, no home, no wealth, no formal education, had given him everything. It was a story that, if he hadn't lived it, he might not have believed. But here they were. In that moment, Michael Sullivan understood a profound truth. Miracles often come from the most unexpected places. Grace's laughter and Noah's lively chatter were proof that hope, love, and determination could accomplish what worldly power alone could not. His life, once hollowed by loss and despair, was now rich with purpose and love, all because a brave 10-year-old boy had dared to care. With his arms around his children, Michael watched the pinwheels whirl against the clear blue sky. His heart was full, his spirit humbled and uplifted. What happened had indeed left him speechless, but it also left him a changed man. And as the trio sat together, basking in the warmth of their bond, one thing was certain. This was only the beginning of a beautiful new chapter, one defined by hope, compassion, and the enduring power of family. And if you've stayed with us until now, thank you. Stories like these remind us that hope can come from the most unexpected places. If this touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us next time for more inspiring stories that could change the way you see the world.